Welcome back, Trippers, for another installment of Tripping Through Transformation. Today's guest is Alex Kris. Alex was born in a part of the Soviet Union, which would later on become the Ukraine. Kris moved to the United States in 1994, and he shares with us his story of resilience and what it was like living in the Soviet Union, Ukraine, and his move to the United States. So without further ado, balance, drop the beat.
Balance makes it bang.
Hello.
In your camera, right? There you go. How's it going, Alex?
It's all good. It's really hot today in California. Like sometimes some areas like 110 inland.
110?
Yeah, I mean in my area probably like 90 today, which is kind of hot. But it's a dry heat, so there is no humidity, so which is better compared to like Chicago and New York and all those areas where it's hot and humid and nasty.
Yeah, I've been to California once. Beautiful place. So as long as you can enjoy that weather, right?
Yeah, I mean the place is beautiful. It could have been better if it was ran better. Unfortunately, it's not. So the gripe that I have is local thing.
Yeah. So I have to be honest with you, Alex. It's probably the least prepared I've ever been for a show. I know your name's Alex. I know you go by Gru. You're on Decades, and you have your tech. Yeah, Alex on tech, right? But other than that, I really don't know a whole lot about you. So
Okay, I mean I can briefly tell you my long story short. Okay, well basically myself, my wife, we grew up in the Soviet Union. Okay, then it became Ukraine in '91 when Soviet Union basically collapsed and all those 15 republics decided to go their own ways. Okay, and then we came to the States in November of '94. It's been almost 30 years since we've been, in the States, living in LA or LA area in West Hollywood, which is like a small town adjacent to LA since that time. I had my computer science degree from the town where I'm from. And I've been working for the same company since '96, which is a long time. Some people don't believe it, or sometimes I don't believe it, but that's how it is. Well, my wife got her degree in computer science here, in one of those colleges around LA. We have two kids, 28 and 21, both out of town now. They both live in New York because all the young people want to live in New York for some reason. Okay, I don't, but it's for young people.
yeah.
It's fun and all that. Well, and I've been involved with computers and mostly doing software development. But I learned some IT stuff and some tech tricks over the years, and that's what I kind of do as a hobby. Help people, and just give advice whenever I can, when asked.
So is that something you've always been passionate about, technology and things like that?
I mean, I always was kind of, I always like to play with gadgets, like whether it's smartphones, cameras, various gadget related things, kind of follow that whole trend, try to anyway, Well, I cannot follow it as much as I could because of, I would spend all the money I have, if I did, but, just trying to, just to be mindful of budget and also trying to buy stuff, sometimes to test or sometimes just to enjoy, as a personal, thing, or recommend to somebody else after I had experience with, a smartphone, a camera, a drone, or similar things, or a smartwatch, etc. So, well, I'm a big sports fan. I mean, not all sports. I follow soccer, pretty much 100% because, people who grew up in Europe, soccer is sport number one, and the rest of the sports are like distant second, third, fourth, etc. Okay, so that's, I've been doing it since like 1982, since I was 11 years old and watched my first World Cup. Okay. since that
Yeah.
time, I've been following the game. I mean, I also watch hockey sometimes, sometimes American football, but I don't really get baseball. I mean, yeah, I understand people who like it, but I don't get it. Okay, I mean, just my personal, take on it.
Yeah. I
Basketball.
I struggle when it comes to talking about sports too, because I'm not really a sports guy. I mean, when I was younger, I watched a bit of hockey. Growing up in in Quebec and stuff, I followed the Montreal Canadiens. But for some reason, growing up, I was a big Patrick Waugh fan. I don't know what attracted me to him, but I loved that he was the best goaltender. And so
Yeah.
when he moved to Colorado, I kind of left Montreal and I followed him to Colorado. And then once he retired, I just kind of lost interest in sports. I just didn't really keep up. So a lot of guys talking about, football, soccer, baseball, hockey, but I'm still stuck like in the 90s, early 2000s. So not.
Yeah, yeah. It used to be an NHL team called Quebec Nordics, and then they moved to Colorado, I think, as far as I remember.
That's right.
When for some kind of all big exodus from Canada, the Winnipeg Jets became Phoenix Coyotes, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, a few teams stayed, but some teams went to states, maybe for better, bigger markets and stuff. Maybe for some kind of probably for some kind of financial decision, for them to move out of Canada because of probably some taxation and other, financial reasons, so.
Yeah. Well, what cemented my love for the Colorado Avalanche is that, like you said, they were the Quebec Nordiques. They got sold to Colorado, and then they win the cup their first year. Like, that's what Quebec wanted for all these years. Like, what the hell? And first year they moved. So.
Well, I mean, it's like look at Vegas Golden Knights. They came about and immediately in the first year they went to finals. Okay,
Yeah.
I mean, and so I mean, they've been a decent team, ever since. Have a big following there in Vegas, big arena, and people go and watch the game, so.
No, sometimes you just need a bit of a shakeup or new management, or I don't know, right? Something has to happen to make the team work. And
sometimes it's also luck, and there are many reasons. Let's say you see like a NHL team being great one year, getting to the cup and winning the cup, and next year they cannot repeat it.
Yeah.
I've seen it with my local teams with Kings and Ducks. They had they won a Stanley Cup like a few times, but then they couldn't do it immediately after, and then basically not since many years ago.
Yeah. So I know you mentioned you want to talk about mental health, resilience, and personal development. I mean, you mentioned that you were born in the Soviet Union, then you moved to Ukraine, and then you moved to the States. So I feel like you probably have a lot to talk about.
Basically, I mean, Ukraine just became separate country. I am probably the only one decadian who kind of lived in two different countries without leaving the house, because the country just became an independent, state, what used to be part of the Soviet Union became its own country, okay, basically. So, I mean, without moving anywhere, I ended up in a different country, in a country with a different name, because the former country basically collapsed and and became no more. Okay, so
what does that look like?
Well, basically, I grew up in the 80s. I was a teenager in the 80s and stuff. Like 85 when Gorbachev took power. Or was elected, or was not like was chosen at the time. After all those old leaders died. He was trying to, change the regime. He was trying to, bring more like freedom, like more open economy and stuff. But at the same time, unfortunately, him and his people who were around him, they tried to kind of keep, power of a communist party around, and the communist party power and the market economy, they didn't really work well together, and eventually leaders of all the 15 republics decided that they don't want to report to Moscow anymore, and then said, hey, screw Moscow, we're going to be on our own. And then basically, like in late 80s, it felt like Titanic. It was all fun until it hit the iceberg and collapsed, okay, basically. And the economy went to hell pretty much immediately after Soviet Union's collapse, because the whole central planning and stuff, it would be like a factory making some, let's say, I don't know, cars in Ukraine, but the parts were made in Uzbekistan, and then the whole, basically the whole thing basically went away, and factories became, they couldn't do stuff because they didn't have that economical, ties. They just had like somebody from Moscow would tell them, hey, you make this and you make that. And then when that kind of, iron fist disappeared, the whole system basically collapsed. Okay. And also, the goods that Soviet factories made, they couldn't compete with the rest of the world. They could, they were good in when it was an iron curtain selling stuff within the Soviet Union or selling stuff to like so-called Soviet bloc countries, but they couldn't compete with the West basically, and that's why many factories closed and people lost their jobs and etc. Because they had old equipment, old technology, and basically they couldn't compete anymore with my dad, for example, all his life, his working years, he worked for a big government-run tire manufacturer in our city, okay? And he told me when the plant was opened in 1960, 61, the equipment was actually brought second-hand from UK at the time. Yeah. And then, of course, when Soviet Union collapsed and whatnot, without changing equipment and overhauling the whole process, you cannot compete with Michelin and Goodyear, and etc. with those so-called leaders in tire manufacturing business, And a plant it looks like Detroit. Basically, it's like only walls now. The factory is no longer operational. Okay, so at this point, and and the only way the factory could have been kept alive if they attracted some kind of foreign investment, to retool the factory and use the cheaper labor to produce tires, but it didn't happen. So, many factories like that exist in former Soviet Union, in various places. They basically, they don't produce anymore.
So what impact did that have like on the population? One day you're being ruled by the Soviet Union, and then all of a sudden they're gone. You're your own independent country. Like, what happened to the society there? Was there like a...
Well, okay, when Soviet Union was kind of on the verge of collapsing, we were promised by the local, all the local leaders or local republics, government of all those 15 republics, they basically promised everybody that we would be better off on our own. Unfortunately, except maybe Baltic countries like, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, they were kind of more like towards West, all the time. The rest of the republics are not really doing as good. Russia is doing slightly better because they have plenty of oil and gas and natural resources. But countries like Armenia, Georgia, for example, they don't have plenty of that stuff. They're not really, they're not doing as well. The smaller pieces of ex-Soviet Union are not as prosperous. And people are actually people that I knew, were looking for some kind of escape. Nobody wanted to. Everybody saw how bad it became immediately. Like after Soviet Union collapsed, and most people were looking for escape to go someplace else. Looking for a better life. Okay, so that's what basically we did. My wife, and her grandparents at the time. The four of us came first, and then my mother-in-law came, and then my parents came in '96 eventually. That I was, I kind of was.
So it was just becoming too hard to live in Ukraine, and you guys decided to make the move.
Pretty much, yes. Me and my wife were like in our early 20s. We didn't really have much. I finished college. My wife was still in college, and then, for us it was easy. We didn't have any property, any money. We just pick up and leave, start over somewhere else, basically hoping for a better life. And that's what we basically did, But we did, we did it, of course, we did it the legal way. We had to go to Moscow for an interview, get all that stuff approved, the paperwork and whatnot. And we even had to get like a kind of loan from one of those non-profits to pay for airline tickets because we didn't have money for that. So basically, they got us tickets, and when we came to the States, I think we paid like $20 a month for two years until we paid the tickets back. And some people did not. But I said, you know what? I'm not playing this stupid game. I owe money. I want to pay it back, and I did. So
Yeah.
after.
What I find interesting is you mentioned you moved in '94 to the States, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so for me, like I moved from Quebec to Alberta in '94. So I feel like there's kind of that link there. And for me, I remember when I moved from Quebec, I didn't speak a word of English. And now I find myself in a new province that speaks primarily English. So that was a big change for me. So how was that for you to go from,
Okay, I did learn English in school. I think we had starting from 5th grade, we had English. Yeah. And then I had English in college. I even had some kind of certificate of interpreting technical books and whatnot. The problem was in Soviet time. I mean, when I look at it now, two issues. Of course, you had your English class maybe twice a week, and then when you leave your class, you don't have anybody to speak to or practice to or listen to any English language radio or watching TV because it was an iron curtain. And on top of it, in the city where I'm from, we had a big military plant that used to make rockets for ballistic missiles, and our city was closed to foreigners until '88. So, it was even, worse as far as trying to get some English, influence or English language and stuff, basically, to practice and whatnot. And second thing, during the Soviet time, I think teaching English or any foreign language, like a Western language, for example, it was also like an ideological deal because they didn't really teach us how to speak. I mean, we would know alphabet, some grammar, how to read some simple text, but I couldn't really speak freely until I came to the States. I mean, because again, I didn't have any practice. I didn't have anybody to speak and practice with,
Was it frowned upon? Was it frowned upon to speak English outside of class?
No, it was not frowned upon. It was not. I mean, it was not. I mean, it was no practical use unless you worked for a foreign ministry, or you were involved in KGB and spying and all that stuff. I mean, even if you knew English, I mean, where would you use it? Basically, I mean, it was not a huge use for it, and I mean, basically, and my biggest exposure to the West or US and Canada was when I was, I think, in 6th grade, and it was some kind of touring by NHL teams that were playing in Moscow, against Canadian teams and US NHL teams that were touring in Moscow playing some either Soviet team or those, clubs and whatnot. That's how I knew names of NHL teams, cities Chicago and Quebec and Montreal and Ottawa and stuff, and my geography teacher at the time, when I was in 6th grade, he was real surprised how I knew all those city names, and I only knew it because I knew the name of the teams and where teams were from. I was watching those games on TV, on local Soviet TV, those battles between Canadians, the Americans, and the Soviet teams at the time,
Yeah. You mentioned something interesting. So you said in the town where you lived, there's a rocket manufacturing company.
Yeah, and the plant is still there. I'm not sure if they're doing. I mean, they're doing some military stuff right now. I'm not sure what exactly. I mean, they're doing, but they used to make engines for ballistic missiles.
So was the town locked down? Because you said foreigners weren't allowed, but
yes. Because our soccer team, for example, they had to play in those European Cups, in 83, 84. I mean, before the town was open, they had to play their home games with foreign teams in a neighboring city.
So were there checkpoints and gates you had to cross and all that?
No. I mean, basically, the amount of foreigners or the number of foreigners or where foreigners were allowed to go in Soviet Union, it was highly regulated. Okay, so let's say if you're a foreigner and you couldn't land directly in my city, let's say flying from Europe or from US or from Canada. You would probably end up in Moscow or St. Petersburg, okay, and then they would allow you or disallow you to. I mean, they would basically form a group and only show you the best stuff, like, the art museums, the Kremlin, the Red Square, but they wouldn't want you to see all the bad parts of the USSR, okay? So you wouldn't be able to just simply hop on a train and come to my city.
That sounds a little bit like the tours they give in North Korea. Get on the bus, don't take pictures, don't ask questions, only see this building.
It was maybe not as bad, but probably quite similar, okay? Because they didn't really wanna. I mean, that's why, like, for example, Moscow and St. Petersburg, those two towns were always better supplied during Soviet years, like with food and clothes and other things. Because they were like basically a screensaver into Soviet Union. Okay, that was like the best stuff that they would show. Oh, look how our socialism actually can compete with capitalism. Although it did not, it was basically a direct force to have two cities being better than the rest of the country. Okay, if you will. Okay, that was basically how they kept the facade clean. And the rest of it was, like 18th century in some places. It is now in Russia. Some places are still that way.
So you go from living that type of lifestyle, and you move to the States. How much of a shift was that for you, like to adapt to a different lifestyle?
I mean, I didn't really. I was young. It was easy to basically to switch. First maybe a couple of months, and etc. I mean, I didn't have like a culture shock. When you move from a, kind of a not so good life to a better life, it's easier to adapt. So I didn't really have any and some people, like, when I came to the States, my wife and I, we would go to that English second language class, just to polish our language and stuff. And basically, and some people who were like from Moscow, they were like complaining about a few things, about US, all that stuff is not good, that stuff is not perfect. And our teacher, our ESL teacher, who was actually German originally, she married American guy, and he was killed in Vietnam, and she lives now in the States. She told those people, hey, no one forced you to come to the States. You don't like it, buy a ticket and go back, basically, and also she said, which is kind of nice, I kind of remember, she said, you know what, there is no paradise built anywhere, okay? If you find the paradise, you let me know and I'll join you in it, okay? But, outside of that, okay, so yeah, there are things that are not perfect, and, they will never be, and, if you can adapt and you can live, that's basically what matters, as soon as, I picked up English and I was able to communicate with people, and my vocabulary got better, and I was not afraid to speak anymore, even if I was not always speaking in a perfectly in perfect grammar and stuff. People would understand and help me and stuff, and would because in LA there are so many people from different countries and stuff. It was not like some kind of a rural area in Alabama, where no foreigners ever go, but it was
I remember it was a struggle for me learning a second language, because I was 10 years old, so the learning aspect, I guess, wasn't difficult. It was just being embarrassed if I made mistakes in my accent and things like that. And I always remember there was a guy who tried to pick a fight with me because he had a no fear hat on, and he was making fun of me, and I said, oh, what about your no fair hat? And he's like, oh, it's not no fair, it's no fear, and always picking at me. So that was hard. And then actually I found myself, like, once I knew English really well, it was hard for me to go back to speaking French, not because I didn't know it, but not because I became embarrassed about it. So did you keep your original language? So what do you speak?
Yeah, I speak Russian, I speak Ukrainian, which is, those are two languages that are really, really close to each other. Same grammar, same rules. A few letters are different, and a few words are pronounced differently in Ukrainian comparing to Russian. And same Slavic group of languages, like, which is Russian, Ukrainian, Belarusian, and Bulgarian. I can kind of read Bulgarian, and I can read Belarusian. I can even read Polish, because Polish is very close to Ukrainian, except in Poland they use Latin alphabet and not Cyrillic. Because basically when we got our first PCs in college in '89. They were made in Poland, and all the manuals came written in Polish. And since Polish close to Ukrainian, we were able to actually understand what stuff was all about. Because it was no good books on computers at the time. It was like the computer thing was basically new, to everybody, including our professors. Okay, so and we had to get our hands on whatever we could to go through college and stuff, because again, it was shortage of books as well as shortage of anything else in Soviet Union. Okay, I mean it was always shortage of something. Okay, and people who tell me right now, oh, how great it was under blah 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 Soviet Union and this, and then I go, you know what, we probably live in two different countries. I mean, so that's what I tell them. And or when people try to sell me free stuff, free healthcare, free education, free, all government running, it doesn't work. I mean, some of it does, but most of it does not, because I live there. I lived there for like 20 plus years, and I remember, all the shortages and all the things that you had to hunt for better stuff, or know someone to get you a better refrigerator, better TV, some better food, etc. Okay, so it was always a shortage because government didn't know how to plan for like 300 million people. Okay, I mean it was impossible, but government was trying to do it, but it never worked. So
I feel like I'm seeing that a little bit in Canada these days. They're trying to talk about free healthcare and $10 a day childcare and free dental care for these people, and they have all these programs, but they're not working as planned. A lot of people on waiting lists for months and months and months at a time.
I mean, even like in California, okay, we have this program called Medicare, which is like basically medical care for disabled and low-income people, okay? And I remember, when we came and my parents came in the 90s, it was pretty good, but then they allowed so many people in that it doesn't work anymore. They changed it to like a different system, and now most doctors are paid so little they don't want to accept medical as insurance, and then you have to go to jump through hoops and go to a doctor far away if you want to be seen, and be seen under that medical for people who are poor or low income or disabled. Okay, so they made it worse to be. I mean, they did accept a lot more people into the program, but the money is not there, okay, to support the whole thing. That's the problem. Probably same as in Canada. Same. When you only have a limited budget, but you have 100 times more people who are eligible to participate, and and you cannot please everybody. So that's why, people who talk about free healthcare, Medicare for all, it's not going to work. I'm not saying the private insurance is perfect, but it works. Okay, basically, you pay money and you get seen, and you don't have to wait 6 months to get an MRI. Okay. So
if you have something serious, you don't have time to wait around, right? You need the treatment now. So usually it's the people with the money that get treated, and then the rest, well, you wait your turn, and hopefully we get to you on time.
Yeah, I know some Canadians, they go to states to get MRIs and other procedures that they don't want to wait for like 3-6 months, in Canada to get those procedures done, and to see what's going on, whether it's serious or not, requires medication or some kind of, surgeries and whatnot. So you cannot wait in many cases,
Yeah. So on the topic of, mental health, resilience, and personal development, you've talked about living in the Soviet Union, which then part of it became Russia, and then moving to the States. Is there an event or a story or something that stands out to you that happened to you personally that was really challenging that you overcame and then you learned something from?
Yeah, basically when we were like, when we were about to, when we had our tickets to leave, we basically took a train from my city to Moscow, and then we're supposed to taking a plane from Moscow, from Sheremetyevo Airport to JFK, and then second plane from JFK to Los Angeles. And then, it was like some kind of a local crime syndicate in Moscow that was extorting money from everybody who was leaving. Okay, and they knew through, I think, those train attendants, who was leaving and when, and we were kind of getting in touch with those people to allow us like a safe passage, so to speak. and then we did agree on some kind of, like some amount of money that we had to pay him to, to give us so-called safe passage. And then when our train hit Moscow, and then those people met us and they told us, oh, no, yeah, I know, but we want more money from you guys, to give you a safe passage. And my mother-in-law, I mean, she was like, with us. I mean, she was not living with us, but she was, helping us to with all that stuff, luggage and whatnot. And we basically told them, hey, we agreed on this amount, and we have, nothing else. And then after they spoke among themselves, they said, well, okay, that's fine. So yeah, okay, we'll let you go. And they basically they put us like in a minivan, and they drove us from the train station to the airport. It was like a dark, cold November, like a day in November, and when I was in that minivan, I didn't really know. What was going? Whether I was driving us to the airport or someplace else. It was like I was in the dark, and I was like. I was slightly afraid, not like crazy afraid, but it was like a big unknown. And once they dropped us off at the airport, I was like, okay, well, that's basically it. So it was kind of a bit this experience, that I remember, leaving Moscow, and then I wouldn't want to go back to visit, just on that, kind of bad memory, so to speak.
Yeah, I can imagine you're kind of just trusting that things will work out the way that you planned, but you don't know for sure. So that would be stressful.
Yeah.
So what exactly are they helping you with, though? Just crossing certain borders or getting past certain check?
No. They basically were extorting money from people who was leaving, because they knew that they could. Okay, and they knew that the local police was no help, and they were basically doing that like a extortion thing.
So they could stop you basically from doing what you wanted, and if you wanted to move along, you had to pay them, kind of thing. It's kind of like a shakedown.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a shakedown, and what's also interesting, when my parents left Ukraine in '96. When they were leaving, it was a flight from Kiev, which is the capital of Ukraine. It was a Kiev flight, to either to LA direct flight or through JFK. I don't remember. Through Kiev, it was just easy. It was no problem. My mom's cousin, he met him in Kiev, and then he basically drove him to airport, and then it was totally a different experience that they had. It was no such extortion, no such mafia, no such thing in Kiev, but Moscow had it.
That makes it hard to start your life over if these guys are kind of stripping you of all your money before you even leave the country, and now you're in a different place, and you're like, I got nothing left.
We had maybe a couple $100. We didn't have a lot of money, but we had and then when we landed in the States, we had some temporary help from like a local nonprofit, to sort of to let us settle and stuff, and then I found a job, eventually, and and then I find my current job, and eventually but it took a while to get used to it, and basically, and but it was still even being getting that small amount of money monthly until I found my job, it was still a better life compared to what we had in Ukraine, for example, when the whole economy collapsed, and it was basically scary times.
Yeah. So how do you go from that to now being part of decades and being focused on men's mental health, and how did you get involved in all of this?
Well, I did watch by chance. I think I watched some decades episodes, and I knew Ed from late around 2010. 2008, 9. He used to work for a company that they're currently our ERP software vendor. Okay, and then I knew Ed. He was working there. I met him, on a few occasions. They had those customer days where I would go to Virginia, and we would hang out for a few days, learning that new software and whatnot. That's how I knew Ed, and then I did reconnect with Ed on LinkedIn, like a couple years ago, and then since Ed was on Decades, that's how I became part of Decades. Through Ed, basically.
Yeah. That seems to be kind of a common theme because I know Jim knows, Ed, and that's how he got on, and Ed, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I like the Decades, what they did, I didn't care about NGBN at first, and then I kind of liked the idea of mental health and, helping people, and learning stuff. And then, when NGBN collapsed, I didn't really have any, big, I don't miss NGBN. What we're doing now is probably, as good or even better because we're not obligated to report to some matrix, some numbers, some stuff, whatever Ian was pushing and stuff, whatever was in his mind. So I think it was a natural progression, if you will,
And where did Alex on Tech come from? Was that after Decades or before Decades?
Actually, I got an idea. There is a local guy on the local radio. He has a show called Somebody on Tech, where he has a show on the radio like every Saturday, and he basically, gives tech tips and, talks about gadgets and whatnot. And he has like some kind of a local TV show and stuff. I just kind of got an idea from him, but I cannot compare myself to him because, he's much bigger and well known, and eventually, maybe I'll have some similar on YouTube. I'm not ready yet, but I'm just trying to kind of do it in small steps.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Do you have a channel or anything, or is this primarily just for Decades that you do these segments?
I do have a website, which is kind of it's not really just a website where people can actually ask questions through it. I don't have a channel yet. I want to do it one of these days, but I just need to kind of push myself to go from tech tips for Decades to having maybe like a 30 minutes, bi-weekly, little YouTube channel, and then, build on that. That's my kind of goal, but I didn't get around to it as of yet, It's always some of the stuff.
What's the website and what kind of tech tips do you offer? Like primarily just technology or?
Yeah, any technology, if I don't know some stuff, I can always, explore and learn and give my opinion on various tech things, TVs, smartphones, cameras, etc. Whatever it is.
Hardware stuff primarily, not software and things like that.
Not software in a big way. Maybe like a software, like in a smaller way, like a consumer software, like maybe some like QuickBooks, some small stuff that people can use in their personal life. Because enterprise software, it's a lot more complicated. I work with enterprise software now, and we are actually planning to switch to a different package because my management thinks that we outgrew what we are using right now. So, that's more complicated. And people in their daily life do not need an ERP system, in their homes, but they need some simple, to manage their finances, maybe to pay bills, to see what better financial tools they can get, credit cards, loans, etc. So that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Some of the things you mentioned, I don't even know what it means, like ERP. I have no idea.
Well, ERP basically means it's abbreviation for enterprise report planning, which is like a application that, for example, my company runs on and gives you visibility from sales to finance to packing slips to production. What's going on and how things. I work for a manufacturing company. Actually, we make little electronic chips called the crystal oscillators. Okay. So, and then, that program allows everybody to see the progress of production, how things are moving and, finance side and inventory and sales orders and packing slips and, all that stuff. It's kind of like, company-wide big application, okay, that my company runs on.
Yeah.
So, and you don't need it in your personal life because, it's an overkill. So just
fair enough.
You need some simple. If you're like a small business, you might need like QuickBooks or some, online tool that you can just run on or, etc. So.
Yeah. Well, we need people like you for sure. Because I know for me, like running this podcast, it's a learning curve for me. But one of my biggest challenges has been my tech. My computer crashing, or maybe the software, the programs I'm using, one of the features suddenly doesn't work, and I'm depending on it. Like this background that I have for you here today, that's not really the background I wanted to create for you, but my program just decided, yeah, I'm not going to do AI expend anymore. So this is what you get. So maybe it'll change by the time I air it, but so yeah, tech is definitely fickle. It likes to not work sometimes, so we always need wizards that can kind of step in and say, oh, that's easy, I can fix that for you.
Yeah, and it's not always easy to figure out, like unless you kind of hangs on. I mean, I can give you advice based on what I know and based on what I see. Let's say, like we did troubleshooting with your computer and stuff. I mean, I can see what's going on. I can give you advice based on what I have. But with all the hardware stuff, it's always easier to get your hands on it. I mean, and to see, what's going on, how to repair, or give advice, how to fix stuff or how to make things better, smoother, etc. I mean, there are so many components and so many things. Just depends. People ask me, oh, what's the best computer? I go, depends what you're gonna do. Like for my personal, situation, like when I just using emails and social media and whatnot, I just use plain old Chromebook. Instead of for the $200 laptops, it's easy to carry. It's 11 inches, and that's what I use for my personal stuff. But I wouldn't use that stuff for business because it's not good enough. Same if you play games, you need a high-end graphic cards and good SSD and better memory, etc. Okay, and all that cooling and whatnot. But if you use your computer for simple stuff, you don't. So that's why it depends on it depends on what's the application side of it.
So what's your website? Where can people find you?
It's Alex on tech.com.
Oh, that's easy. alexontech.com. Okay. And through there, do you have like a blog, a forum, or do you just have like
No, I think as far as I know, I mean, it's just like a button. If you want to ask me a question, it will send email to, send it a message to my email, at Gmail, and I would be able to,
step in and answer?
Yeah. I mean, but I don't think it's been used because I didn't promote my website as much yet, But when I do, I mean, I'm planning to build more and to have it more functional, so people can interact better with me and stuff.
Yeah. Well, I might be using it because I know that my computer issues sometimes, that's the biggest factor to my mental health. So to have somebody who can help me out is very beneficial to me. So
yeah, definitely.
alexontech.com. Okay. I'll check it out.
Yeah.
I feel like you've probably gone through a lot. You had a lot of experiences just being from the Soviet Union and Ukraine. Like what do you see now? Like what's happening now versus then? You know what I mean? Like what do you think about what's happening in Ukraine now?
Well, unfortunately, I mean, if not for the war, I mean, we have some friends, and some distant relatives who still live there. The life before the war was, I think it was improving. It was better, I mean, but unfortunately the war changed all that. And now, people are just afraid of being bombed and being, I mean, all that stuff, the war stuff. The closer you are to this front line, the more chance you have of something with some kind of rocket or bomb would, reach your town and your house or your neighborhood. That's the main thing, and people don't always have electricity because some of those stations got bombed and they're no longer operational, so they have to kind of do those blackouts, because there is not enough electricity to to power everybody all the time, so unfortunately.
Yeah, I feel like
especially with winter coming soon, it's a big concern for people.
Yeah. I feel like we're so far removed from violence for the most part in North America. I mean, at least from war, right?
Yeah.
So we might not really be reflecting on what those people are going through. Do you see an end to this? Like, how do you see this stopping?
Well, I mean, basically, military-wise, it's pretty much a stalemate. Russia took some Ukrainian territory, and Ukraine now took some of the Russian territory as of late. I see it being stopped as some kind of a deal where basically both armies, basically go back to the, before war, borders. Okay. Otherwise, I mean, I don't see any of the sides winning the war, militarily.
Yeah. What I'm getting is really the side that does the attack is at a disadvantage. Whereas if you're the one who's kind of on the defensive side, you have the higher advantage. So nobody really wants to go hard anymore.
It's always easier in the military operations. From what I know, it's always easier to defend than to attack because you're kind of you have better protection. When you're hiding behind like in some kind of foxholes. With some kind of reinforcements and that. And when you're attacking, you're like you're open. Okay,
you're vulnerable.
Exactly. So, but I mean, it would need to be some kind of a peace deal eventually. But I don't see it soon, but eventually, or some people say when Putin dies, which is kind of a pie in the sky, he can live for the next 20 years easily. I mean,
he's in his 60s, right? Like he's in his late 60s.
I think he's in his 70s, but he looks okay to his age. Okay, I mean, he looks better than some people in the 70s I know. Okay, so I mean,
better than Biden, right? Better than Biden.
Well, yeah, I mean, Biden's older, and I mean, it's not only age; it's it's mental health. Unfortunately, hits different people differently. As far as all those diseases that people have in late age, sometimes they come earlier than with some people compared to other people. So it's not always. It's not always age. It's just it's how people live their lives and the genetics and other stuff that affects how old you are as far as I mean, and your mental health. Okay, it's not always age. It's always.
And I'm sure he has access to all the best doctors and best medicine that there is that's available to him, right? So that helps.
Pretty much, yeah, he does. Even with all the embargoes, there are probably ways to to go around them. As far as getting treatments and getting stuff. Yeah. I mean, and he also thinks that he would probably live forever, but it's again, he thinks that way because he doesn't want to, And then when they threaten everybody with nukes, it's just a talk, in my opinion, because all of their kids and all of their close relatives, most of them live in Europe. They don't live in Russia anymore. Okay, so if you're talking about we're gonna nuke London, well, you're gonna nuke your kids basically. Okay, I mean it's like I mean it's not like, it's not real. I mean I don't believe in it. Because again there are many investigations and reports that their families are basically they're in safe havens. Okay, so already.
Yeah. Trump seems to think that if he gets elected, he can end the war pretty quick. How do you feel about that?
Well, again, yeah, I mean, maybe, but I mean, he would need to show me how he wants to do it. I mean, everybody, likes to promise stuff. And on the plus side, when Trump was in power, in my opinion, the world was a better place as far as, there was, I mean, Putin didn't start war in Ukraine under Trump. Okay, for example, and Middle East was quieter, and to me, maybe there is something that he can do better than the current regime. It's just a hope, on my part,
Yeah. Well, I hope so, because it's scary what's going on over there. Like lots of uncertainty in the world, right? Because of all the chaos.
Yeah.
And when they start talking about nuclear weapons, now it's like, like let's not go there.
Yeah, funny you said that nuclear weapon. I just remember when Brezhnev died in '82, I was 11, okay? And then our homeroom teacher at the time, she basically told us like with a straight face. I mean, of course, it was like ideological thing she probably was told to say it. She basically said, since our great leader Brezhnev died and we don't have a leader until the next leader is picked, by the communist regime, US gonna nuke us. And I mean, we were like 11 years old. They're like, I mean, but later, when I kind of grew up, a few years later, I was thinking, it didn't really make any sense. Why would US wait for Brezhnev to die to nuke us? I mean, if they want to nuke us, they could have pushed a button, I mean, with Brezhnev there, I mean, and if he's not there, I mean, it was not like a big deterrent, him being, he was like, he was kind of like in his late years, he was kind of like a Biden. He was like old and senile and didn't know what he was doing, and he was like walked around by his puppeteers. He was kind of similar. He was in similar health stage. As Biden now, and I was like, but imagine you're 11 and you're told that your country could be nuked. I mean, like,
why do you think they would do that? That's like, is that like a form of propaganda to brainwash you, or?
Yeah, it was some kind of stupid propaganda. I'm not sure what was the reason for it. To scare 11-year-olds. Again, as I'm thinking about it now, it was like it doesn't make sense. But that was basically that Cold War, between the West and the Soviet bloc, all that propaganda, that we had, and it was some of it on the West as well. Maybe not as much, but it was anti-Western sentiment big time until like mid '80s, and then it became different when the openness and all that stuff, came about.
Yeah. So it makes me question when they push things like that on children. Because if you think about it, you can tell a kid about Santa Claus, right? Oh, we got a magical man who has reindeers and he flies in the skies and he drops off presents through your chimney. And usually they don't question the idea of Santa Claus. They just question, well, how does he do this? How does he do that? So to me, if you start telling kids, oh, the United States are going to bomb you, they're probably not going to go, oh, well, that's not true. They're probably going to go, oh, really? Well, what does that look like? What are they going to do? So to me, that's a form of brainwashing in a sense. And that could be considered, mental abuse, because the kids don't know any better. They're just believing whatever you tell them.
True. But again, I don't remember talking to my parents about it. But I would imagine. I'm not sure what other parents had told their kids after kids revealed that kind of thing. They probably were telling them, oh yeah, it's not true, probably most parents would tell their kids, oh, don't worry about it, it's just whatever your teacher said, it's just probably what she was told to say. That's what I think. But still, I would say most kids probably were freaking out or kind of being scared about it, like about the whole potential of it, although, I don't think kids kind of believed in it, as much, but still, it was not a Santa Claus, as you said, story. It was like, a scary story,
Well, scary story for sure. I was just trying to say that kids tend to just believe in what you say, right? Especially if you're in a position of power, like a teacher. Yeah. And your teacher tells you this, like this is somebody you see probably 5 days a week. I'm guessing you guys went to school 5 days a week, like in America.
I think at the time it was 6 days a week. Then it went to 5 later.
Okay. So this person has a lot of influence on you, and now they're telling you that the states are going to drop nuclear bombs on you. Like, oh my God, right?
Yeah. But again, yeah, it was, but yeah, it was scary. But again, I don't know if anybody had any mental breakdowns over it. Maybe they did, like inside, but it was not shown. Okay, at least on outside, it was no like suicide or no like crazy things happening to anybody in my class, at least that I knew of, because of what she said, or what she was thinking to say,
So the idea of nuclear war or having bombs dropped on Ukraine was not something that made you decide to leave, I guess, because by then you were older, right? So the concerns were different.
Yeah, basically, when Soviet Union collapsed, it was mostly peaceful, collapse. Basically, they had a few things in various parts, but it was not like a big war. It was like some stuff in Chechnya where Russia didn't want Chechnya to become independent state, from Russia, and some other places. But it was like a local conflicts. It was not a huge deal. So that part was not a big factor of my decision or our decision to look for a better life. It was just an overall, state of economy, and we didn't want to, wait till it get better, because we didn't know. We knew it was going to take many years, and we just didn't want to live while it was changing or hoping for it getting better. Okay, so
yeah. And I take it you're happy with the decision that you made, and you're happy with being in the States now.
yeah, and I mean, I never been back because again, our close family is here, and we have more family. I mean, over the years outside of Ukraine than in Ukraine. So I don't have any big reason to go back. And if I want to spend my vacation, I want to go to a place where, like, to explore some culture in Europe, or some places that I never been, that I want to visit, But even before the war, I didn't have any desire to go back. It was basically.
There's just nothing left there for you right now.
Exactly. Yeah. Again, yeah.
And now your kids are all in America, so.
Yeah. And if I want to communicate, I communicate with my, high school mates and some of those relatives who are still there. We just in this plenty of social media, WhatsApp, and etc. So I mean, you can still communicate and find out how people are. I mean, although you cannot do much, but at least you can. That they're safe and alive. Basically. So,
that's what I was gonna say. What are your friends and stuff saying that are still in Ukraine? Like, how are they doing?
They're okay. I mean, they're suffering. Some suffer more than others, but they're adapting to a new reality. Okay, basically, being without power and without those amenities at times. But they. I mean, the whole country, people, I mean, everybody from Ukraine or anywhere else, they cannot simply pick up and leave, so some people are still there. Okay. I mean, most people are still there.
I imagine that they've probably largely been displaced within the country though, right? Like if certain cities are being attacked, you can't stay there. So there's been a big shift within the country.
Yeah, there is a big shift, because some cities have been basically leveled. Okay, there is no more, there are basically, so I mean, cities that are closer to the border, most of them are pretty much, in ruins. Some people left, to other places, or left the country, like to Poland or to neighboring countries who were accepting them, at least temporarily, to as refugees, etc. So.
Yeah. Man, that's rough to think about, because if I can't even imagine that happening on this side, like on this continent, if bombs started to drop over here. Like I don't think that's ever been experienced, right? I don't think there's ever been an attack on North America. So
I mean, it was attack on Pearl Harbor in 41. That was the last big attack that the U.S. was attacked, and Canada probably was never attacked as such. I mean, from what I remember,
1800s, maybe, yeah.
Exactly. I mean, even before that, So hopefully it will never happen. But that's why I mean, unfortunately, we need to keep a strong military, at least in the States. Okay, so to prevent that from ever happening. As they say, if you don't want to feed your own military, you're going to feed your enemy's military. Okay, so
speaking of, like, do you have an opinion on what happened when the States pulled out? Is it Afghanistan or is it Iraq? I can't remember now, but they left like $85 billion worth of equipment for the Taliban.
It was just stupid. Yeah, it was stupid because somebody decided that was a good thing to do, and it was stupid. Okay, they could have kept like a small, small base like of like 5,000 people like we have in Germany and Japan, and just to have present and not give all that military equipment and bullets and bombs and stuff to enemy. Okay.
Well, they paraded like Apache helicopters and tanks and everything. Like, I'm like, what the heck? Like, that makes no sense. If it's too expensive to bring it back, at least blow it up, do something. Don't just give it over to them.
Yeah, they claim it was disabled, but I don't believe so. I mean, like they have like kill switches. I don't think so. I mean, most of it was just left. I mean, for it to be used by the enemy who was fighting us for last 20 years, or so. Okay, seems... I had to go. It's like 12:58 now.
All right, Alex.
To jump into my board meeting, So I mean, that's basically life,
Okay. Well, I appreciate you coming on, Alex, and I'll send people over to your website, and we'll be sure to catch you on Decades.
Okay. Thank you. Talk to you later. Have a good day.
Take care.
Yeah. Bye.